Start recording. And so before the temples, there were Vedis created, and that was all that what we know as Brahmanic tradition. And the Vedis were created only for one particular sacrifice. For example, there are sacrifices where you build your Vedi, your altar, for 1 year, 12 months. Every day you put some bricks. There are 10,000, 1,800 bricks. Can you imagine the number of bricks? So every brick is put into that Vedi in a particular fashion, with particular mantra, concentration of consciousness, with particular Jyotisha related to it. The devatas of that Jyotisha are invoked to help to place it properly, and so on and so forth, in the morning, in the evening, in the midday. So at the end of the year, this Vedi is built finally, a huge structure on which the sacrifice is made, and that is it. It's not used again. So then again, the new Vedi has to be built, because the building of Vedis was the sacrifice itself. It was the preparation for that one moment. All the force was all of concentration of consciousness was gathered and put into this action. You can imagine if 1 year you're building it, and at the end you make one moment of the sacrifice, there must be some result. Yeah? This is one of the biggest Satra sacrifices, which is built over 12 months. The Prajapati bird, which is flying to the east, is built with 10,180 bricks. There are many types of Vedis. This is the biggest one, but there are also other types. But what was there before even that? Before Brahmanic period, where we had Vedic rishis, because the Vedis are not mentioned in the Rig Veda in that sense. They come into life in the Brahmanic period, 2,000, 3,000 later. And what was there at the beginning was this Svadhyaya. And Svadhyaya is this, what I want to show you, how the word was used for creation of the sacrifice. So the Vedic self-learning is a sacrifice, Jnana Yajna it is called, the sacrifice by knowledge, or Brahma Yajna, the sacrifice by mantra. Brahma here is mantra. Or Svadhyaya, Svadhyaya literally learning for oneself, Sva-adhyaya, or rather not learning, but reading to oneself. Reciting the mantra to yourself, not to anybody else. So Krishna describes this in the Gita, how Svadhyaya is to be performed. You have to build the special place which is away from everyone, then nobody can disturb you. You sit on that kusha grass, on that the skin of the antelope, and then you concentrate. And when you concentrate and you are alone and nobody disturbs you, you can do Svadhyaya. That means you read the text, which you know perfectly by heart, to yourself. The question can be, why should we read text which we know perfectly by heart to ourselves? Is exactly the answer is in that you become the sacrificial event by doing it. So what Krishna says about Jnana Yajna in the Gita is this. Shreyan dravyamayad yajnat jnana yajnav parantapa sarvam karmakhilam partha jnane parisamapyate. The sacrifice by knowledge is greater than by any material means, O Arjuna, for all actions and in knowledge experience. Sarvam karma khilam, all karma, without any leftovers, without anything left or remained, creates, or parisamapyate, ends in or culminates in the jnana, self-realization, or knowledge experience. Basically, all what we do in this world is for this jnana, for the self-realization, for knowledge, for experience. Nothing we do here for anything else. We think that we may create something, but truly speaking, we're just gathering that knowledge. Api ched asi papebhyah sarvebhyah papakarittamah sarvam, sarvam jnana plavenaiva vrijinam samtareshyasi. Oops. And even if you are the most sinful in the world, by the boat of knowledge you can overcome the misfortune of sin. And that is the self-realization, the jnana. Because what is sin, actually, as Sri Aurobindo beautifully describes it? Somebody asked me this question, and I was looking for quotations from Sri Aurobindo, how he defines sin. He says sin is misplacement of one activity in the other context, nothing else. So basically, it's a mixture of time and space. It's a not proper placing of some certain activity, which demands and has cravings for its own, so to say, self-realization. So by this self-realization, by knowledge, one can overcome any misfortune of this misplacement, because you see how things are, and then you can place them properly. There is no sin anymore. Like a flaming fire burns to ashes all the fuel, the fire of knowledge burns to ashes all the actions. So there will be nothing left, no consequences from actions if it comes to the fire of knowledge. So what is this then, Svadhyaya? So like Sri Krishna speaks so highly about, that it is better from any sacrifice by material means. Svadhyaya literally means self-learning or reading for oneself. Svadhyaya. It is a kind of recitation which one does as a means for spiritual quest, searching after spiritual knowledge realization. It was of a sacrificial and meditative nature, different from the Padapatha and Kramapatha recitations, which were meant to preserve the Vedic text. There are many types of recitation in the Brahmanic communities, in the Gurukulas. And they are reading Padapathas split into words, the text, and you read Kramapathas. They have many different varieties of Kramapathas. It is only to learn the text. It is not Svadhyaya. So if you read the text for the sake of learning, it's not the Svadhyaya. It's not the ritual. It's not the sacrifice. The sacrifice is much more serious. You read it to yourselves. There is Ya Evam Veda, which I have to...
Vladimir?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Then this Svadhyaya is learning, reading for yourself with sound or innerly, without sound?
With sound.
With sound, okay. Okay, but it's a meditative state.
Yeah, it is like japa, very low sound. It is not shouting. It is you are reading because you have to articulate in the physical body the speech, and so yes, it has to be articulated in your apparatus. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so this Ya Evam Veda is important to see because the Brahmanas and Aranyakas, at the end of nearly every passage, and you will be surprised if you read Aranyakas and Brahmanas, that everywhere at the end you will meet this Ya Evam Veda, which deals with ritualistic and mythological nature. Sorry, my mumbling. Use the formula Ya Evam Veda, the one who knows thus. And continues, he verily gets the fruit of the sacrifice. So first we see the text, we read the text, and then it is written, Yavam Veda, the one who knows thus, he gets the fruit of the sacrifice. What does it really mean, who knows thus? Who knows in this way? It's kind of strange, yeah? As if we understand what it is, and at the same time it's not totally understood. So it was not a ritual what was absolutely important for the performance of the sacrifice, but the text as such, And the understanding of its significance, artha. This formula, ya evam Veda, indicates that the reading and understanding of the text were considered to be equal to the physical performance of the sacrifice. It is already used from the time of the Taittiriya Samhita. So if we examine the Agnihotra sacrifice, which is described in Aitareya Brahmana 25:7, the structure of the Vedic ritual Agnihotra is consisting of three priests, Hotara, Dvaryu, and Udgatar, reciting texts from Rig, Yajur, and Sama Vedas, corresponding to three regions, earth, air, and heaven, respectively. So if you can imagine, we have on the Vedi, we have three fires. One is located on the east, other is located in the south, and in the north direction. And in the west, there is no fire, only three fires facing east. And there are three priests who are doing readings of these Rig, Yajuh, and Samaveda texts and make oblations into these three fires simultaneously. So the fourth priest is Brahman, who is silent during the performance and standing in the western part of the Vedi, observing them, all the actions, as well as listening to all the words they utter. His function was to be a witness of all that was happening. And in the case of any imperfection in action or speech, he had to correct it in his mind. Prayashchitam. He was curing the mistakes in his mind only. It's kind of interesting. So when Dakshina, the performance of the sacrifice was over and the Dakshina, the money was given to the priests, half of it was given to the three priests, Hotara, Dvaryu, and Udgatar, to these who recited from Rigveda, Yajurveda, and Samaveda and made oblations in three fires. And the other half of money was given to Brahman alone, who was silent. So the one who does practically nothing, says Aitareya Brahmana in dispute, gets the same portion of dakshina as the other three who recited and performed all the sacrifice. Why is it so? So the Aitareya Brahmana continues and explains that the first three priests represent Vach, speech belonging to the earth, of which, according to the other Vedic text, Agni is the essence, especially Chandogya, while Brahman represents Manas, mind, belonging to the heaven, of which Surya is the essence. And by this speech and mind, earth and heaven, they create the space in between prana, life energy, belonging to Antariksha, the middle world, of which Vayu is the essence. Therefore, says the text, this Vayu Pavamana is Yajna. So Yajna is created within these two actions. One is the word, another is the mind observing the flow of speech and activity. And in between these two, there is something created, which is the sacrifice. So as you remember the scheme, the heaven and earth got split, and Surya became the essence of heaven, Agni essence of earth, and Vayu the essence of Antariksha, the crack. So these three fires have to be united according to the sacrifice. So, Svadhyaya technique. The same ritualistic structure is also maintained in Svadhyaya, where the reader of the text, which he knows perfectly by heart, utters it, so to say, in automatic way, while the other his part, Manas, mind, is observing the flow of the words, and being detached from the active formulation of the text becomes simply a witness of this text, like Brahman priest is witnessing the action. When these conditions of the sacrificial act are maintained, then the reader himself becomes an altar of the sacrifice, or to be more precise, his life energy, prana. So in this way, he unites and becomes one with the three levels of heaven, earth, and space in between, or mind, word, and breath. So the same technique. And so you can imagine if our mind is totally separated from the articulation of the text, which is flowing because we know it perfectly by heart, and observes it as if it is not you uttering it, but you're just listening to the text. What is happening within you is this event of the sacrificial um, significance. You get some experience out of it. You see the text in a new fashion. You get some energies entering into your life, and you feel the change of your life energy. I practiced Svadhyaya for many years, and I must say it is always acting, always doing the work. So if you read the text perfectly by heart and observe the meaning flowing as if it is not you uttering, you always discover have some great experience out of it. Some change of your consciousness is taking place.
Vladimir,
Yeah.
is that the same as making a division between Purusha and Prakriti?
Uh, yes, Purusha and Prakriti, of course, Purusha and Prakriti, definitely. But in this case, it is mind and word. Mind is heaven, and the word is, of course, mind is closer to Purusha, Manomaya Purusha, and the word is closer to Prakriti in some way. I think later these terms are introduced, Purusha and Prakriti. They become kind of dominant in the post-Vedic philosophy, but not in this Vedic yet. But of course, one can identify them, definitely, as these two, a spirit observing the action of nature, and between these two something happens.
Vladimir, does when you recite in Svadhyaya, do you have to know the Sanskrit by heart, or can you be actually reading from a text?
Right, it's a good question. Yeah. If you, when we read the text, why do we read it all books? Yeah, because we get some experience. Did you notice that? When I read Ramayana, I got the greatest experience in my life. Yeah? Emotional and powerful, spiritual. It was like a heartbreaking thing, and I would never have such experience in my own life. So basically, even if you read the text for the first time, yes, if your reading is so fluent that you're not stumbling and not articulating the reading too much, yeah, it is just flowing easily, then of course Svadhyaya will take place.
Vladimir, I'm wondering, just to follow up on that question, it seems to me also that it doesn't necessarily have to be in Sanskrit. I think of Savitri and reading that with this, passive mind, if you will, and the words flowing, that can create kind of the same sacrifice or transformation, if you will.
Absolutely, absolutely. Nobody says that it should be only Sanskrit. We can read any poetry which is really changing our perception. And Savitri in that case is very powerful. But if you take even some Shakespeare, it is really influencing you so much that you are never the same after reading it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that's interesting to mention to Shakespeare, because I was always under the assumption that in order for there to be some form of transmission, there had to be some Shakti that was imbued in this case, whatever we're reading, regardless of the language. And maybe, could very well be that Shakespeare was imbued with that. So it isn't the source of what we're reading critical to the effects of Svadhyaya?
Oh, sure, sure. Svadhyaya. Yes, it is. It is the higher the higher the text, the higher the effect of change. It depends what you read, but not necessarily, not always. I noticed also from my experience that you can read newspaper even, not very high text, and if you keep this calm, observing mind, you will gather some knowledge out of it, even there. Yeah? So it will be hidden in presumptions and in presuppositions. It will be somewhere not totally explicitly available, but it will give you some hints why people speak this way. What do they really want in this time? And if you keep it very calm, it will widen or broaden the perspective of your perception, and you will see many more things, how this text relates to other texts and why this author speaks this way. So that is, again, it's another development. It's not within the Svadhyaya, but Svadhyaya leads to it. That means the mind has to be detached and observe the text as if it sees it for the first time. So if you know text perfectly by heart and you can flow it through yourself, sound it through yourself, and have this mind perceiving as if for the first time, that is the best situation. Yeah. Then you can get the most out of it.
But Vladimir, in case with Savitri, that if I don't know the text by heart, then reading is also fine, right? You said.
Yes, of course, of course. We've had this many times, especially with Savitri. When you read it, you get into such a state, so powerful, the same as Vedic texts, or even sometimes more powerful because the text is known to us. English is understood, so to say.
Yeah.
Somebody,
also,
yeah. Go ahead.
But also with new English words in Savitri, is it for us to practice Svadhyaya? It's important to know all the words or to search all the words which we don't know yet. And sometimes I just skip if I don't know the meaning and only use so many words. That's for me.
Right. But you see, what somebody asked the mother, shall we read Savitri if you don't understand it? And she said, yes, you read. Of course, the question was not only about words we don't understand, because that understanding will come slowly, but about general, context.
I mean, I'm talking about English word, one or two words that we don't know for non-native speakers,
Yes. And yeah. So yes, right. I mean, and for me also, I don't know many words there, and I still read it, and I have some sense of it. When I don't know the word, I have the sense of it or something. It fits very well within the other words and in this movement or flow of consciousness. He uses very rich language. He uses even Russian words in English, which I recognize, but I'm not sure that somebody in English would recognize. So there would be, he's rich with language. So, but it is not about only language, it's about the understanding which we don't have, what he's talking about. And Mother says that we should read it anyhow because the understanding will be built by reading it. So the consciousness of the text will slowly build the tools of understanding it itself. So it is not coming immediately. It is just through the practice of repetition that slowly consciousness will be prepared to receive this knowledge. And that is interesting. This is something even beyond Svadhyaya technique. Yeah? So by reading texts without understanding them, you can prepare your consciousness to understand the text.
So there's also no need to look for dictionary, with some new words you don't know. Why use chant Savitri in a way of Svadhyaya?
Yes, well, yes, I would say that it is not totally so, but it's because better to know the words, but if you don't want to, because you feel it, sense it, so you can go ahead because the flow of energy is there, the sacrificial flow. So I'm also not checking all the time the words because it would stop me from reading.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel the same. Thank you.
Yeah. So Taittiriya Aranyaka, which is actually describing the Svadhyaya, is talking about this It starts with second chapter, all dedicated to Svadhyaya alone, but the first one starts with this. Very interesting. I have gathered all nourishing powers of consciousness from here, from there, and from beyond. Agni, Vaya, and Surya I have combined for the growth. So this union of all the levels from above and below is the key to the concept of the sacrifice. It is to be done for the universal and individual growth, the condition of which is simultaneous and united existence with Agni, Vaya, and Surya. So, and then there is text which is confirming it. Tasmat Svadhyaya dhyeta.
Sorry, Vladimir. This too. I have a question on what is this Taittiriya? This is a kind of Veda or Upanishad text. Where does text come from?
It is older than Upanishads. It's a part of Taittiriya Brahmana. It's
Yeah.
Taittiriya Aranyaka, yes.
Okay.
So it is kind of ritualistic Brahmanic literature. So
Okay. So.
here it continues in the same way, saying that therefore Svadhyaya should be learned for whatever he reads about any action. Sorry, again, I have to go back. About any action that he is reading, he fulfills the desired and moves towards union with Agni, Vaya, and Aditya. This is the text from Taittiriya. So it's a kind of interesting that by that very thing which you read, you get the desired and come to the union of these three fires of your speech, your mind, and your vital fulfillment. So Sayanacharya, who is the biggest ritualist of 14th century AD, who made all these commentaries on the Rig Veda and Taittiriya, he speaks about three kinds of sacrifice. The sacrifice is of three kinds. I'm translating literally, that's why it is a little clumsy. By bodily action, by word, and by mind. There is no discussion how it is done by the word, for it is understood, you just read it. But when the reader knows also the meaning of the words, then in the moment of the reading them, the mental kind of sacrifice is following automatically. And even if there is no bodily action occurring in the performance, it does not matter at all. Only the one who by prescription is to perform the bodily part of the sacrifice should do it. Otherwise, any other one gains the same fruit of the sacrifice by reciting the text of it. Thus, the reader moves towards the union with Agni, Vayu, and Aditya. And notice, it's all the time the same to move towards union with Agni, Vayu, and Aditya. This is the aim of the sacrifice. So, it is by the word and understanding it that the sacrifice is taking place. This is Svadhyaya. So there are 5 great sacrifices, Mahayajna. Svadhyaya is called Brahma Yajna. It is distinguished from other kinds of sacrifice. Taittiriya Aranyaka 2.10 says that there are 5 great sacrifices. To gods, ancestors, spirits, men, and to Brahman. And it continues. When one puts into fire only a fuel, it is already Deva Yajna, the sacrifice to the gods. When one offers to the ancestors only water, exclaiming Svadha, it is already Pitri Yajna, the sacrifice to the forefathers, to the ancestors. It is done with water. It's interesting. So the Deva Yajna is done with fire and Pitri Yajna with water. Just think about this. Devayana and Pitriyana, the sun and moon calendar here, both are. So when one makes even a little offering from his food to the spirits, bhutas, then it is already Bhuta Yajna. That means sometimes people, when they eat in the forest, they take a little from their food and they drop under the trees. You know, they give to the spirits of this place. They share with them their food. When one gives food to Brahmanas, then it is a Manushya Yajna, they sacrifice for man. But when one reads for oneself even one verse from Rigveda, Yajurveda, or Samaveda, then the Brahma Yajna is performed. Even one verse. Svadhyaya is depicted in the myth of Taittiriya Aranyaka 2.9 as the sacrificial act done by rishis who, by desiring yajna, the embodiment of the supreme, so to say, yajna is that transformative action which is embodying the supreme here in nature, received it from Brahma Swayambhu, from the creator. And by performing it, they made gods again sinless, apahata papmanah, and thus went back to heaven, Svargam Lokamayan. And the rishis, who thus went back to Loka, Svarga Loka, the gods. And the rishis themselves joined the abode of Brahmana Sayujyam Rishayogachan. So it was seen that rishis were the sons of Brahma Swayambhu, of Creator, who by bringing Svadhyaya made the fallen gods sinless, brought them back to their divine origin, and themselves went back to the origin from which they came. Make sense?
Yes, Vladimir, it's interesting that there's no mention of the element of like bhavna or, you know, a bhakti element to this
Right.
description, Svadhyaya.
Yeah, there is no bhakti here yet. It's interesting, very interesting. Bhakti comes later in this esoteric history, only in the 500, 1500 AD. We don't have bhakti. We have bhakti in Ramayana. It is for the first time we have bhakti, but afterwards it's kind of the whole Vedic ceremonies and Vedic texts are not speaking about bhakti in that way as we know it later.
Well, but still, it would seem that if you're truly practicing Svadhyaya, that there is that opening of the heart that occurs along with the opening of the mind, or the transformation of the body, the heart, and the mind that occurs. So it does seem to me that you may not call it bhakti, but there is some aspect that is heart opening in Svadhyaya.
Very nice. Thank you for this correction. Yes, there is some heart opening, but not in that very sense as psychic being may do. Yes, as a personal love for the divine. It won't be there in that form. It will be in the impersonal form of ananda and joy and universal sense of bliss, but not that personal, urge from the soul to find the divine.
I see. And why, Vladimir, do you imagine? I mean, it seems Svadhyaya is accessible to anyone. How is it that we migrated to these outer, these grand outer sacrifices, and then, we got into this scene of all these temples and people doing, daily pujas and Agnihotra and all of this? How is it that we shifted away from Svadhyaya, do you think?
Well, there was a reason, most probably, that, and still Svadhyaya is here. It's not, it doesn't disappear. People do this all the time. And that's why they have puja rooms. It's interesting it's just a room where you can sit and concentrate. Or in India, for example, they can put some tilakam on some anthill, or, put some ashes on the tree and sit in front and worship. And people say, oh, these barbarians, look, they worship stones and trees and anthills. But truly speaking, for them, it doesn't matter what is in front of you. What matters is what is inside you when you do it. Yeah? It is not the stone that you worship, definitely. It's just a place marked for this sacrificial event. That's what it is. We totally misunderstood this practice. It comes from Svadhyaya, actually, again. It's an inner call, an inner contact, inner experience. And the place is marked as holy for that purpose.
Thank you. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I remembered for your question that Sri Aurobindo, in his work on foundation of Indian culture, and he explained also why many of the inner significance of the past has been externalized later. And maybe that can be helpful also.
Right.
I just want to really help me understand all the forecasts, all the this inner, the process of as mechanism in externalizing all the inner significance in the society, in their tradition.
Right, absolutely. That's what you say, that the Brahmanic period started with search for this knowledge, and it wanted to fix it to certain rituals and these mantras to be used. So these mantras were fixed for certain rituals. Whether they fit there or not, it doesn't matter. Many mantras do not fit to that ritual at all. But what was important for them is to just again to try to engage with this great knowledge of the past, because the tradition was broken between the Samhita time and Brahmana's time. Yes, there was a huge loss or gap or something. Within 2000 years, there was an attempt to revive it. So it was done in ritualistic practices, building Vedis, concentrating each break with a certain mantra. The mantras came back, became useful, became physically necessary, and they kind of reflected also this the necessity for this caste of priests which was engaged in getting dakshinas and so on and so forth. So it was, the whole society was built around this knowledge, the body of knowledge, and bringing all these mantras into the ritualistic actions. And many rituals were invented and made in physical sense. And also Svadhyaya still endured and continued, and still is there from the very beginning till now. Because Vedic rishis, they say that they created these hymns as vehicles to rise in consciousness, to rise to heaven. So these are the vehicles. And how would you use them? You don't need to build Vedis and make oblations into the fire. You need to really use these hymns. Read them to yourself and observe the flow of the meaning. And in that sense, Rigveda is unique because Rigveda does not require a teacher. In the later post-Vedic literature, the teacher becomes a must. You cannot do anything without the teacher. Teacher tells you what it is, how it is, what to do, and so on. You totally rely on the teacher. In the Vedas, these vehicles of uplifting your consciousness are there for you to use. Please take them and you will have this upliftment. You don't need somebody to tell you what it is, because the text will open up the vision by itself to you if you dwell on it. It is packed with knowledge. It will give you an experience and vision. And it won't be misinterpretation if you follow, of course, certain keys and understanding of the psychology of what is happening. But that's why Sri Aurobindo left us with certain keys, that we understand what it is about. And if you have a deep knowledge of Sanskrit, of etymological system and how roots are built, how derivations are created within the grammar, you will have all the necessary tools to discover that knowledge. This is really something good, and it is subjective and it is objective at the same time. It is scientific totally, because we can speak about it within the same mind frame, understanding the same visions. We will have different kind of connotations within ourselves because we have different contexts. We will be subjective, and still we will be talking about the same body of knowledge, which is an amazing thing. You can't find this in any other type of yoga later. It is already something else. It requires only methodologies were given what to do in order to purify yourself and to receive the certain state in which you can receive an experience. But then Guru is necessary to help you out. And especially in Kundalini Yoga, Guru is absolutely necessary to protect you in case you are in trouble. But here it's another type. And in Svadhyaya, there is no ascent of Kundalini. There is a descent of Mahakundalini. There is a descent of power, the same as when you read Savitri. You feel that coming down the pressure over your head, luminous and blissful and peaceful, and pervading your head and chest, because you are doing Svadhyaya. Always the same feeling or the same experience. It's kind of interesting because it fits totally to Sri Aurobindo's vision of how it has to be done.
So, Vladimir, would you say that the recitation is japa and then the descent is ajapa?
The descent is the result of you seeing the text in a new fashion. Something in you sees it, and once you see it, you open up the channels for this descent of that power which is there hidden within the text.
But even to see it, doesn't consciousness don't I have to permeate consciousness, more pure absolute consciousness in order to get the insight to see it?
Well, of course, it's gradually unfolded. It's not immediately. First has to be a glimpse, then a contact, then more established contact, and so on. It develops. It is not that I'm not saying that immediately starting reading you will get the fullness, but sometimes if you even for the first time read, it is so overwhelming, so powerfully descending that you don't believe that you even deserve this kind of response. So it has its own power. I was a friend with Kiri Joshi. Kiri Joshi was a great scholar, the president of ICPR in India, of Indian Council of Philosophical Research. And he told me at the end of his life, he died already last year, he told me that he doesn't know anything, no other better solution than Svadhyaya for spiritual path. And it was kind of interesting to hear this from someone who is a minister, who was nearly a minister of education. He was the right hand in education of Indira Gandhi, and speaks this way. You see, this is not a meditation per se, as we do understand it, as we do meditation. It is meditation with the text. It's not even meditation. I should not say it is meditation. It is a sacrifice.
Vladimir, it almost sounds like a contemplation that is expansive. The contemplation is more of a mulling over that is an opening.
Right, contemplation is a very good word. Yeah, also.
Well, and it also seems to me like it's what you're doing is offering yourself to the text. So as you say here in this presentation, you become the sacrifice. Your body, mind, and heart is the offering to the text.
Now, if you see the text where it is saying that I invoke Agni, I seek him as adoration, who will lead us all and bring here the gods. Can you imagine that? That you listen to this text you are saying. Something must happen, should happen to us while we. So it is not even me who is really doing the offering. It is the word within me is doing the offering. The divine, through this mantra, is doing the offering to the divine to descend and act within my consciousness. So I am somehow not even engaged. I do not know how to say, but I receive the whole fruit of the sacrifice.
I see. I see. And it seems that there is or can be two steps to this, you know, as we do as we read these hymns, or as you read these hymns and explain them to us in the Rig Veda, you know, we're parsing, we're taking apart the sentences, we're looking at the individual words and how they fit within the whole. And so there seems that to truly understand at least something that is in Sanskrit, there's this first stage that you go through that you really engage the mind, right? And you understand the flow of the words and the pronunciation, and then you can enter into this Svadhyaya practice. Is that correct?
Sure. You notice the longer we dwell on the verse, the better it is. More it is opening the scope of what is there behind. Because it is not what is said, but it is what is presumed. Why Rishi says what he says, we have to discover. And we are moving into that field of their presumption and presupposition. And from that field, that force is coming, which gives
Very
us
nice.
vision.
Very nice. Yep.
You know, I'm also gathering that there's a certain passion that is involved in this, back to what was shared about bhakti in a more formal way. I don't mean it in a formal way, but Vladimir, I'm understanding from what you're describing that there is a passionate contemplation, and through that, that giving over of oneself to the text for its own sake, then there is an opening and a receiving that is apparently always available. And so I'm approaching what you're sharing from the point of view of a certain, what's the word that escapes me other than passion, a certain
Aspiration.
Okay, aspiration, yeah. And I was thinking of it in a more down-to-earth, even sillier way, intentionally so. It's there's a certain joy of, well, I'll leave it at that. Aspiration, I like that. But those qualities seem to be inherent in us, nothing we have to acquire. There's something within us that gets ignited that automatically leads to an inspirational, passionate opening that brings its own effect.
Right. So this aspiration is the kindling of in us the fire. The aspiration is this fire, which is kindled by the word, and then it calls, and the inspiration comes from above, descends, and we get the inspiration. We get the vision. We have this widening of consciousness from that, and we wonder how come we got it. It was not supposed to be there, but it is there always. So this is the sacrifice, basically, Svadhyaya.
Yeah. Vladimir, what did Sir Bindal say about Svadhyaya? Did he say anything as a spiritual, as a method for integral yoga? I mean,
Well, I don't know anything about it. I have to check, because I was not looking for this from that point of view. Well, they speak about it not in terms of rituals for the yaya. They speak about reading Savitri, even if you don't understand it, or reading Sri Aurobindo's text, because they will build up in us the tools of understanding, the means of understanding the text slowly and gradually, because the word itself, charged with knowledge, is slowly building up the receptacles within the being, which is kind of practicing it. It's kind of an interesting thing. It is happening. It is the transformative practice by the word. And what I want to say, that the whole Indian culture is built around this word. That's why they are not, temple oriented. They are not looking for some embodiment. Though there are beautiful temples in India nowadays, it is not really a most important thing in India. Even in those temples, you will find them very strange in a way. they are not built in the manner as you could expect them to be built. They are not white marbles as giant temples. They are black, dark, and very, very, so to say, not to that beauty or magnitude which you would think they should be. Buddhist temples are very rich. The Jain's temples are very beautiful. But Hindu's temples are, you won't find that kind of appealing aesthetic sense. Of course, outwardly with statues, it's very beautiful and so on. But inwardly, when you go to the altar, to the center, there will be always some surprise. So I want to say what about this, that the Svadhyaya is the sacrifice. The rest is kind of a development of a later time. And I think it came with maybe with Alexander, or even a little before with Chaldean influence, because temples are famous in Chaldean tradition. In the Jewish tradition, temples are important, but not in the Aryan tradition, not in the Vedic. The word calling for the gods, and I am the altar, that is what is important. I am the place of change. I am the place of the sacrifice, my consciousness itself. And everything else related to it in some way or another, all the humanity through me gets this influence. Makes sense, no?
I love what you say, Vladimir. I'm the place of sacrifice.
Yes. How else can I make some sacrifice? Kill some animal and what? And then get some result from gods. They will send you some money. This is something very, very mundane. Nowadays, the sacrifices are made in such a way that you do not like. I would not like to see how they are made. It's all very egoistic, very vitalistic, total exchange going on. So I give you this, you give me that. I pay this much, you pay me more. And it's always exchange. I gave you so much, and you have to send my children to the school. They have to pass the exams. He has to find a good bride, and so on and so forth. That's what people do nowadays in the temples. It's a constant bargain. The sacrifice itself disappears. Yeah? So the power of Svadhyaya, to explain it better, I have to finish now because I will have another. So I will finish very briefly. In order to explain better why Svadhyaya has such power, that Taittiriya quotes from the Rig Veda. Richo akshare parame viyoman yasmin deva adhi vishve nisheduhu. It's a very famous verse of Dirghatama Uchatya. Yastan naveda kim richa karishyati yaitadviduh te me samasataiti. The sacred verses are in the highest heaven where all gods abide. He who does not know that, he is going, what is he going to do with the sacred speech? Those indeed who know that, they are perfectly united. And this is interesting, perfectly united, samasata. One can think about it. What is this to be perfectly united? So, and then the text says, Yavatirvai devataha taha sarvaha vedavidi brahmani vasanti. All the gods as they are live in the Brahman who knows the Vedas. Sayana comments that they live in man because he is reciting and understanding the Vedic mantras. Pathato arthatascha, from the reading and from the meaning. And since the mantras exist in the speech of the reader and the mind, and in the mind of the knower, mantraha sarve dhyetuh vachi vedituh manasi chavartante, all gods therefore also live in him, procreated or created, or more precisely given a life space by those mantras. Ekai kasmin mantre ekai ko devaha pratipadyate. And this is interesting. In every mantra, the gods are reappearing, taking place, because you sound them and observe them with the mind. Heaven and earth, between heaven and earth, this sacrifice is taking place. So when we become heaven and earth, we create this event for ourselves. But many people say nowadays that reading mantras without understanding is sufficient. It's not. You can see it from here, from Sayana, who is the greatest ritualist. He says it is not going to happen. You have to understand what you say.
Vladimir, I just wanted to comment too, our opening Rigvedic Shatipad also, this is what it's all about. It says, that it must be speech and mind coming together.
Right, exactly. That beautiful Vangme Manasi Pratishtita. My speech is established in my mind, and my mind is established in my speech. Manome Vachi Pratishtitam Aviravirmayedi. Be revealed to me. Be revealed to me, O mind and speech, open to me. Vedasya ma'ani sthaha. You are the two foundations of the knowledge, the mind and the word. Shrutam mema prahasihi. May that which was revealed to me should not leave me. Anena dhitena horatran samdadhami. By that revealed to me, which was inspired, which came as inspiration, I collect my days and nights into one uninterrupted movement of time. Ritam vadishyami, I shall speak the truth. Ritam satyam vadishyami, I shall speak the truth. I shall speak dynamically the truth and statically what is. Tanmamavatu, may that increase me and protect me from within. Tadvaktaram avatu, may that protect me, the speaker. Avatumam, protect me. Avatu Vaktaram, protect the speaker. Avatu Vaktaram, protect the speaker. The speaker is the one who expresses the truth from himself, from his own subjective self. So that is this word which is understood by the mind in the impersonal way. So this is the meaning of Svadhyaya and why it was so important for the Vedic time, and still important for us, why we are doing this. Okay, so I will stop here for now, since I already read the mantra.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was beautiful.
Can we receive this document, Vladimir?
Yes, I will send you immediately. Yes. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.